I think I want to. We are live, Chris. I
We
wish
are.
I wish I could take myself off the screen here.
Oh, sorry about that, Paul. I was just taking a gander at this book.
This book. What book is that? What book is that? Why? I'll be.
I
That's
held it. Can you believe I held it upside down?
yeah. Well, we won't get into all that.
Got my bubble pipe out. I'm all set to go.
That's awesome. I need a pipe that big.
Yeah, it's not a real pipe. And what I found out by mistake one night is that it glows in the dark.
Really? That's awesome.
You charge it with the light, and then when you turn the lights out,
What
it
kind of
glows.
toy store do you go to get that pipe?
A nuclear irradiated toy store from the atomic age. All right. Thanks for having me
Um,
on.
yeah, thanks for coming on. We're going to talk about your book as planned, right?
Oh,
Because
okay.
last couple weeks we've been waiting for it to come out. It came out, and I'm bummed because I wanted to have a copy in my hand uh, for this broadcast here.
Oh, I sent
But
you digital stuff though, right?
yeah, you did,
Yeah.
and I appreciate that. So, but it would have been nice to have a copy of the hardcover in my hand because to me, there's just nothing like the paper and the whole experience of it.
Yeah, the sticking your face in the crease of the spine and
Yeah,
smelling it.
yeah, I know. One of the things I don't have a sense of smell anymore, but one of the things I love is the smell of paper.
Oh
Just
yeah.
like just walk into an art store or a comic book or a bookstore, and the smell that you get from the
When
coffee.
when you work in that environment, when you go home,
Uh,
uh, you take a shower pretty much as soon as you get home because after a while, you
uh,
know,
yeah,
it's just the smell of books all the time.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
and then
For me,
and
it
then
was
you go
always a
down.
special place to go and
Yeah.
a happy place. So yeah, that's
Well, I can't
interesting.
talk. My desk is made out of bookshelves. Like everything in
Right.
my studio
Yeah.
is bookshelves. So
Yeah. Yeah. I got a really nice setup in my studio here, to do art in. And
hey, Didi.
hi, Dee Dee. Thanks for
Sorry,
coming. Hi, Hubster. Hope you
sorry for
guys are
interrupting,
having.
Paul.
No, no. It's good. I'm glad you did. I'm
Tell me
happy
about your
to have
special
you
space
here.
in your studio.
Yeah. So it's real nice, and I get to produce art down here. I mean, I feel so lucky to have it, but I
Yeah,
also work down here my day job. So now
yeah.
I'm getting sick of being down here, and so now I go do my art up in my son's room
Oh yeah.
that he moved out. So
Well, if it works, it works.
yeah,
I know somebody that because they do their day job in the same room that they work on projects,
yeah,
they actually have a desk in the center of the room
yeah.
that has an open face on both sides.
Okay,
And so when they switch the roles that they're doing, they get around
yeah.
and they sit on the opposite side of the desk.
No, that's nice. I like
It's such
that.
a great idea.
No, it is. It is. I've considered that. I actually moved from one side of my desk to the other, but it's not
Nice.
enough. So there's something I need to consider.
Yeah. Hi, Anina. Welcome aboard.
Yeah.
It's never made it to your channel. A bit overwhelmed. Oh my goodness, there's so much on YouTube
Uh huh.
anymore. And hey, it's Jim. It's Jim Lewine. How you doing, Jim? That's my Carol Burnett greeting for Jim every time he pops up.
Okay, we're gonna have to. We've got Anina here. She says, first of all, sorry, Christopher, I never made it to your channel, but a bit overwhelmed with the YouTube world of who to watch. Oh yeah, I know, right? I love Chris's stream, and it's on every day. For first of all, so we're lucky for that. But I work during those days, so I can't really. It would look bad if I'm seen on YouTube during my work day. But every once in a while, I stop in and catch it, and it's great. But so Chris Kalue, I don't know how to say it, Chris, but um, glad to have you here as well, and Jim and Anina and Dee Dee and Hubster. Don't forget about the Hubster. So um,
Hello, Hubster.
we
And
are
Didi.
here to talk about Christopher's new book. Um, so it just came out, and like I said, I wanted to have it in my hand, but I ordered it, and it's not going to be here till like tomorrow, I think, which is or
Oh
Monday,
boy.
which is
Sure.
kind of like.
It happens.
But so I wrote down a list of things. So the first thing I want to talk to you about, if it's all right, Chris, is
No.
the book and just the art process, the process that you use to create the book. And this is mostly what your stream is about.
Yeah.
So this is why I kind of wanted to go over this first. I think most of the people that are going to watch this and tune in sort of know this part about you and your process because you share it with, with everybody every day. But I wanted to talk about it because this is, the thing, this is the meat of it, right? This is.
It is.
And it's funny because this is almost like the most boring part because we all do it, or we all try to, and so,
well, that's the thing, right?
But it's the foundation, so.
Well, last year we had we were working with this company, and initially it was we were going to publish with them, and then it just became whatever time we'd spent with them. I just took that as consultancy and said because that wasn't going to work.
Okay, now, but are you talking about producing? I wanted to talk about first the actual drawing process.
Okay, so what I was going to get to is they had all this advice about don't share too much.
Oh yeah.
And I'm like, what are you talking about?
That's another topic on my list as well. But yeah, keep going. Yeah, no, keep going.
No, my whole process is engagement, like
right.
So writing and drawing stories is no problem for me. Like you, Paul, I've got this world building in my head, and I've got stories I want to tell and characters I want to tell things about. But when the pandemic started, I was working at a bookstore, and a number of the clients that we had at the bookstore, that might be their only social outlet. And Canada locked right down.
Right.
So that it's a stay-at-home only thing, and I'm sure the States did that, but Canada was I found it was really extreme, and so a lot of these people were starting to get very isolated.
Yeah,
and so I know a couple of them I had spoke to were not doing great. So I said, listen, come up with a story idea, whatever. Just give me a random story idea, and I'll sit down, I'll write and draw it. And so I'll go on Instagram or Facebook. There, I think I have a Facebook page. I thought at the time, and I'll write and I'll draw it and I'll share it with you. And if you want, I can even do it in camera. I'll figure out how to do that. And so that's what I did. And so that's where the first book came from. The one that Scott showed on Artcasters the other night.
Yeah,
everything was in a portrait format. And so I ended up doing about 120 pages that way in
120 pages.
In 2022. And at the same time, I was working on a couple of other projects, some film project there, and I had an animation project and a couple of books for things, for different companies. And then when 2023 came around, I decided about January 15th, I'm going to just do this on the regular, because now that I got it all set up and I figured it out, and people have been making lots of suggestions about it, why not? And so because 2021 was where I stopped being at the store, and 2022 is where I was sitting down and I did about the 120 plus the other projects. And then by 2023, I said, let's just do this on a regular. And so I started, and I set for myself a goal. Maybe I can have a page a day for the year. Let's set that as a lofty goal that I probably won't reach. And I didn't.
Are you the type of guy your whole life has set goals and reached them?
No, my whole life is try to meet responsibilities and do right by people.
Okay.
And so raising kids and all that sort of stuff, whatever my stuff was, is always sort of taken a second aside to that, because kids are more important, and it's, a lot of these things are integral. Creativity is integral to who I am, but my family's first.
Yeah.
And so I sat down with that 365 goal, and Christmas Day, all the grandkids were over. and I catch whatever the grandkids have. I just do. It's like a vibe. It's like a style, and not the older grandkids, the younger ones. Whatever the younger grandkids have, they just give it to me. And so Christmas Day, that's it. I got sick, and I missed the rest of the year. It's so close.
That's amazing. No, that's amazing. The productivity.
Well, I ended at 358 pages. What's that?
Yeah, that's amazing. 358. And to me, that you reached the goal. That's close enough.
So the process is somebody suggests an idea, whether it's 3 words or it's.
This is, by the way, for those who are not familiar, I think everybody in this chat is, but sometimes I get some people on Facebook watching that are new, some of my Facebook friends. And
newbies. Yeah,
Christopher has a stream on YouTube every day where he just starts the stream fresh, and he has suggestions they're really just prompts, really, like 3-word prompts or a little sentence or whatever for a 1-page story, and he works on that 1-page story on his stream, and then you usually finish it offline.
Yeah,
and then a year's worth of this is in a book now available online.
Well, so the new book, the hardcover, right? This is just a proof for it. That's why it's got the band on it. I'm still waiting for my own copy.
Your author copy.
Right? But it's 80, or there's 77 stories in here.
Okay.
It's an 80-page book, and out of the 358, right?
Okay, gotcha. I got you.
So right now I'm assembling volume 2. And volume 2 will be out in September.
Awesome. Okay.
And it'll be the same size and the same format. And I figured this time next year, I'll be doing volume 3 out of the stuff that I'm doing now.
Right.
From 2024.
Okay.
And so I'll be running a little bit behind. But the intention is to try to collect as many pages from as many different suggestions from different folks as I can.
Yeah.
And that way, I'm just trying to give something back to the people that have suggested ideas to see interpreted in a 1-page story. And I don't want people to feel left out. So we've been tabulating. I've been having to go through all the original art and write down all the names of people who suggested stuff so that we can tabulate it, and we're going to put it up on our website.
Oh, that's great.
So it's it's a process, but I just want to make sure that anybody that's suggested something that everybody has equal merit.
It's fun. It's fun when you can be part of the book. It's interactive and everything. So, hey, Jim's got a question here. Were your drawings that the child considers strange? I asked because game knows game. So, Chris, were yours? The answer to my answer, I think, is no. Because I drew horses, cars, and Jesus. I mean, you can't get any more. I wasn't creative about it either. I tried to draw
Is it Jesus and a hot rod? Is it? There's a fantastic image by Glenn Barr. No, yeah, Glenn Barr. He has a great image of Jesus driving a big Cadillac, and he's got angel ladies in the car with him.
Nice.
And it makes me think of the Roger Miller song. You're driving all around your big Cadillac. You got girls in the front, you got girls in the back, and way in the back, you got some money in a sack. You're leaning right in with your shoulders right back. So yeah.
Anyway, my answer is not that interesting. It's a quick no. What about you? Were your drawings as a child considered strange?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. What was the strangest thing you drew?
Well,
as a child,
I think they were considered strange because oftentimes I would lean into whatever random weird story ideas I probably was wrestling with, and for me, I wasn't the easiest way to manage me, because I had boundless energy as a kid, and the easiest way to manage me was to put a block of typewriter paper in front of me and a pencil, and just let them go. But I'm sure that whatever I was putting on that page made a little coherence to anyone else. I mean, I've shown you my sketchbooks, Paul. You can.
Even the well-finished, polished artwork you produce is is so, you know, I don't know, just full of energy and stuff. So,
Well, we're trying to capture that, right? We're
yeah,
trying to capture movement and action. Anita says the people I drew as a little girl had antennas.
yeah, I just read that too. That's great. I love that.
Chris started
Like
drawing
I
using
feel like I missed out. Like there's so much great stuff to do, and I still kind of like trying to draw realistic things. You know, it's got to draw more people with antennas.
Yeah, why not? Why not? It's all the cool kids do it. I actually just did a picture of a guy with antennas in it for this block of things that I'm working on. Chris started drawing using her mom's recipe notebooks.
Yeah, that's great. I used to draw on the phone book, the
Oh, nice.
gutter of the phone book. I'd make little cartoons by flip cartoons. You know.
Why not? Why
Yeah,
not?
football games.
Hey, hi, Miriam.
Hey, Miriam's here.
Hi, Miriam.
Hi, Miriam.
So my drawings probably were weird because I remember one time drawing a fridge.
Uh-huh.
And terrible drawing of a fridge, but I remember my mother saying, "What are you doing?" "I'm drawing a fridge." And she go, "Why?" "Oh, it's a fridge." There's
Draw, I guess, Mom.
well, that's the thing about creative types. We don't know what we're doing half the time. We might not entirely know our motivations. What motivates a 10-year-old kid to draw a fridge? I don't know. But that's the only thing I can remember was
Yeah.
one of those instances. So.
Yeah. All right. So we talked a little bit about the art process. Your art process is amazing, and you can see it on your screen. And I, not to minimize it because that is kind of everything. I mean, that's that's the 97% of the iceberg that you don't see, right? Is the art.
That's the part I tried to show in the book.
Yeah, well, that's a great thing. My next thing that I wanted to talk to you about was just producing the book. So you take all that art, and then there's the process of producing the book. Like a little bit about what you and I and Jim Lujan had to get on a call to talk about. It's like this little blip in the process, but it's overwhelming to us artist types.
Well, I've got some pages from the book to show you.
Okay, that's awesome.
Let's see. Well, this is the cover. And then so you have to figure out all the math to wrap that around the spine of the book.
Right.
And that's exciting.
That's exciting.
I enjoy that so much.
Here's what stresses me out, Chris. Here's what stresses me out. It's that the seam, the red that you have a little seam. Will the line separating the front and the back, from the red, will that line up on the actual seam, the fold?
Hold on. I got you, muchacho. Yes.
Yeah, nice job. I mean,
but I gave myself a little bleed over with this.
Oh, okay. There you go. See, that's how you solve that. That's perfect.
So just to take that stressor off myself,
right?
I did that. So
okay, nice.
So doing all the math for this is an interesting process.
Yeah.
And I think that when you have to figure that out, it's challenging. But once you get through that, and then the second part was formatting the page. And so I did something different for the part.
Yeah, tell us about that.
So here's an example. You can see the blue lines for all the measurements that you have to do to keep your page within guidelines.
Yeah.
And these guidelines, and so I built this template for myself with the assistance of my good friend Tristan Damone, who's been on my stream. And so this template tells me the layout and the size for the printing of the page. And so I know I have to keep all of this stuff within it. And yet I've got a bleed edge for the original art. So the way I broke the page down is this. The top part of that page is the original art.
Mm-hmm.
The large image of the finished page is in the center there.
Yeah.
Below that is the suggestion that was initially made for the page. This one's actually from Chris Calloway. So, and then below that is what I was thinking about when I did it. So I'm trying to showcase
Awesome. I love it.
process. Oh,
Yeah.
thanks, buddy. I'm just trying to showcase process in the and an engagement with the making of the book. Now I tried to fit in initially. I tried to fit in who made suggestions in that section, but with certain suggestions, they're a little more verbose than others, and so because I couldn't, I have to fit all of them within the same amount of space, and so
Yeah.
because of that, because some were longer than others, I couldn't get their name on. I thought I better not put names on just so that I don't disclude one person,
Right.
and figure out another way in order to include everybody.
So that's just fantastic. The image up top there, which is on the right side of the page as you're holding it,
Yeah.
Is what you work on during your stream.
Yeah.
And then the finished page in the main section of this is what you finish with. So you can see the horse and the guy on the horse, what you drew it on your stream it looked like, and then how that looks in the finished page.
Yeah.
And then you get the the sort of the context of all this.
Yeah. And then and so I tried to
This
show
book is a history, a compilation of your stream and all the interaction that you've had with all the people on it. I mean, it's really, really, really cool idea. Like just it's a almost like a collaboration of all this whole experience.
It's highly collaborative, my process, that's for sure.
Right.
In producing the one-page stories, and then at the same time, each of the different pages tries to show the different mediums that I'm using on all the pages, right? So while it looks like this guy in the finished page is holding the hamburger up, he's not. In the little acrylic drawing I did of the dude here, his hand's just raised up, and then I painted a hamburger on a piece of paper bag and scanned everything and matted it all together. And then you can see the guys that are talking about what a cool thing in the future that people will be able to have hamburgers whenever they want. I drew that in pencil and then digitally colored the entire thing.
Yeah. Now
it
reminds me of something. Hang on just a second, Chris.
Yep.
Just a second. I gotta grab something.
When I was at art college, last semester was to get specialized in one of 8 areas. One was this, book and magazine design. I didn't go for that. I chose illustration. I don't blame you. Don't blame you.
What?
Chris was saying that in the college, last semester was to get specialized.
Oh yeah, let's catch up with the chat.
First of all, not to do book design, magazine design.
Yeah, when I college semester. I chose illustration. Yeah, it is. It's an art in itself, I think, for sure. You can be good at it, and you can be not so good at it. So, the programs, yeah. Your process, by the way, inspired me to try something. I wanted to show you. I like doing these kind of landscape paintings. This is an actual painting. It's not digital, by the way.
Oh, right on.
But what I did was I put some magazine. I just tore some magazine. You can't even see it though. Tore some magazine paper out and just pasted it on my canvas.
Super fun. Awesome.
Yeah, and just painted over it. There's a bunch of scrap paper on here.
Yeah, you can see it. Did you? It's really well done. Did you enjoy that process?
Yeah, it was just fun. I did it with my daughters too. They did the same thing, and we just they didn't do the putting down the scrap paper, but
you said I know this weird guy and he does this thing.
I did this one, and it's got scrap paper under here, but I put quite a bit of paint on here, and it pretty much just covered it up.
I really like that. That's great.
But yeah, I actually just enjoy doing these, and then putting that extra paper. I want to do it again, but with not so much paint, so that you can kind of see it more, But it makes it fun. It makes it you know,
just invest you into the process.
yeah, it just livens it up. Like it's hard to explain. But you
There's
do that all the time. You'll just put a piece of tape on your your paper. The first time I saw you doing that, I was like, "What's going on?" Here's a piece of tape, a Post-it note.
well, this is one that
random.
I've been doing jelly plating. Oh, hi, Marguerite.
Hey, Marguerite. Hello.
I've been doing jelly plating, and I'm not great at it about transferring an actual image.
Yeah, I've seen you doing that.
But what it gives me is this fantastic modification of surface.
Right.
And so I use that, and then I'll just draw on top of it. And that's what this page is drawing in ballpoint pen.
On top of
and marker on a jelly plated surface, and putting together a whole composition this way. But you can, the reason that I really enjoy the way some of the originals look is all the texture that you can see in the tank now, all that granulation.
Yeah.
Chris asks, what am I using?
Yeah, we're going back to your process, which is probably what I'll tend to do. But
that's fine.
I wanted to talk about book design and the production of the book. So this is a good question.
Yeah. So I put together all my pages in Photoshop.
Okay.
And so I set this template. I built this template with the dragging the ruler line and setting the rulers.
Yep.
And so it carries over the exact same template for all of the pages that I'm creating within this file.
Nice.
And it's really, there's a real benefit to doing that you don't, like, you sort of know as you're assembling your pages, you don't stray too far outside of the guideline for where things really need to be within bleed edge, and to make sure that there's not going to be problems with the finished production of it. And then you just compress all of those images down into a PDF.
Okay.
And off it goes to Amazon. I know I'm making it sound like it's the simplest thing on earth, Paul, and I know that we have both, got a message back saying, change this.
Yeah. There's pluses and minuses to every process. And
so it's that way I can do the different pages and the different styles.
That page.
All in a conformed presentation.
Yeah.
But when it comes to the original pages, that I present them like this. Like I present them without the bordering and the guidelines and all that stuff. The process of doing it in this way is just to make sure everything is uniform and everything fits within the same guideline. Microsoft Word is a simple editing tools. I've used it, but I never imagined Photoshop for it. Yeah, Photoshop works great because you can do all those ruler guidelines, and when you have, and so the thing about this is, the measurements that are on this page are the specific measurements for print.
Right.
So
full bleed and all that stuff.
Yeah. So once I've measured all of that for how it has to be assembled in order to be produced as a book, right? Once I've done that, then I'm good to assemble every page in this way.
Yeah. Nice.
And that allows me the liberty of not having to recalculate everything over and over again. And I looked at a couple other programs and I realized, oh yeah, there's a whole different formatting thing. I got to learn to do this. Whereas, and Tristan said, you could just do it in Photoshop. And I'm like, what?
Yeah, I use a program called Adobe InDesign, and it's designed for books, but yeah, I don't know that it offers anything more than Photoshop.
I think that doing it in Photoshop, like the cover here, this is an insane amount of calculations.
Yeah.
It just is. And the amount of, let me see if I've got.
Yes, Chris, it's a PDF.
See all the measurements on this page?
Yeah. Yep.
That's crazy.
Yep. Yeah, you calculated the white space there for your barcode properly, I see.
Well, you try, but when they actually sent me the proof for the
Yeah.
book,
That's what.
then I'll show you. Hold on a second. You got to see this. This is just what happens. But there's the. I could have done a much smaller barcode space.
Right. Yeah.
But
what I found is, well, they put the barcode on there. I didn't put any white space. They put the white space on it.
They did it themselves.
Yeah. Yeah.
Great.
Yeah. So, because when I calculated my white space, it was off slightly.
Yeah.
And so there was this like two boxes, two white spaces, one on top of the other. So that's when I discovered, oh, they put the white space on there. So I just took the white space off, and now they put it on there. Anyway, yeah. But you did a nice job.
That's nice. Yeah, it's still a little bit big, but I thought that the barcode was going to be a lot larger, so I wanted a fair amount of space, because they give you the outside measurement for it,
right,
like towards the spine of the book, but they don't give you the inside. So I just aired caution. I would go back and redesign it, but I didn't see how small it was until I got the proof.
Yeah, if you get a chance and you want to do the redesign, just take the white space off and they'll put it on there for you. But
well, yeah, that's great. I appreciate that. I wish I'd known that. So I was good with this. It came together fairly well. Chris's question about how do you send the files? The PDF.
Yep. The cover is a PDF, and then the inside is a PDF. And
if you're using the process we did,
to Amazon.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
And do you mind bringing your page up again? One of your pages?
Sorry. I'm so sorry.
No, not at all. So, Chris Kalu in the chat, I just sent my book in as well to Amazon. And can you bring one of your pages up, though, the inside page,
sure,
Christopher?
For those that might not be aware, before I get to that, for those that might not be aware, this is Paul's third book of this character, and they are so good. So keep an eye out for his next Detective Perez, because we really enjoy the first two.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And here's a funny Paul story.
31st book. Christopher's lost count. He can't count it right how many books he's done.
I seriously, I got to figure that out better. I kind of sound like a vain jerk. But here's the funny thing about Paul and his books. He said, oh, I put a couple of books out in trade paperback for him. And I said, how many pages are they? Wow, that's impressive. And he goes, yeah, about 100. Each of those books are over 200 pages. And then he says about this third book, yeah, this is the smallest one I've done. It's just 200 pages. And the volume of work that entails.
I feel like I'm jipping you.
No, the volume of work that 200 pages entails is something that a lot of people will never, that think that they're oriented towards wanting to do this, and they still can't sit down to a 200-page project. So that's impressive. To have finished your third, that's something else.
Yeah. Yes, you do, Miriam. You need to. Let's get going. Me and Christopher will help you.
Yeah,
sure. We'll help you. I really felt like a lot of support with this book. Let me do one more. Chris says, my sister runs her own business marketing ads. She uses Adobe Suite and specifically designed to create magazines, booklets. She, of course, pays a license. Yeah. I actually have a real old version of it, Chris, and on an old computer that that doesn't, it's standalone. It's not on the internet or anything. So
I'm the same way. My Photoshop has a copyright of 2010 on it, and I have it on my external hard drive in multiple computer keys because I refuse to pay $80 a month.
Right.
But that also means we got to really ham hock things together, because some of these really easy things to do, you just touch this button now and it does those 3 steps you used to have.
Right.
And
so one thing I wanted to mention to you was I'm really surprised that Amazon didn't give you grief for having your text in the up and down orientation instead of across the page.
Well, I cheated on a technicality, Paul.
How'd you do that?
I'll show you. So this is I'm a sneaky fella. Don't tell anybody.
Plus, is your font 7 points? Because it looks
It's 8.
Okay. All right.
It's 8 purposely.
Just pissing me off.
So I'm sorry, buddy. Can't be less than 7 points is what we're.
It can't be less than 7. The advantage of going through Amazon is you don't have to speak to a person. The disadvantage of going through Amazon is you can't speak to a person.
Yeah,
So,
that's true. I'm okay with the not speaking to a person part. I find that when you go with an awful lot of these online publishing companies that have put it through into the online world, is that they're all remotely done. And because they're remotely done, one hand doesn't know what the other one's doing.
Right.
And so they drag you through the process. They're always trying to upsell you. And at the same time, nobody can agree on everything because they all have their own creative ego, right?
Right.
So, and that's the experience I just had with this company that we were using last year. I'm not going to name them because I'm not a complete jerk. But if anybody ever asks me, what do you think of this company? I'm going to say, run away as fast as you can. So the way I did it was this. The format says we got to have the binding established in such a way that it can be read on a bookshelf like everything else, which means sideways, right?
Right.
So the cover of the book, it has to be going upright.
Okay.
Okay. All of the image, like all of the pages have to be laid out in the same way. It doesn't mean they have to be laid out portrait. It doesn't mean they can't be laid out landscape. It means they have to be all the same way. You can't flip-flop back and forth. That's the technicality. Right. So what I did was this. When you look at this, you see it on the shelf, and you go, oh, bright white letters on a red binder. I'll look at that. You pull it off, and you see this as you hold it in front of you, because this is the natural way we orientate books.
Yeah.
And you'll do this to see the image. Now, you're already prepared. This is the subconscious thing.
Right. This is the
back cover is the proper portrait orientation for the binding. Okay. But AI publishing, no people. There you go.
Yeah, I want to talk about this more later, Dee. Okay. So hopefully you and the Hubster can hang around. But
so because I think Dee Dee needs to be considering collecting some of her work as well. As you know, as Chris, there's so many and Miriam. There's so many fantastically talented people that I really
look. And even Chris here is like, I want to translate my book to English.
There you go. Excellent.
Yeah. Hey, anybody wants to go for it, we're here to support you and walk you through it if we can.
Yeah, we will help you, and even help you struggle through the awful math.
It is intimidating.
So when you look at the book, and you might reorientate it this way as your natural tendency is, right?
Mm-hmm.
But the cover's already prepared you for the interior.
Right.
So that if you open it up, the first thing, blank page, that's so I can draw a picture for you. And
boom.
There you go. So first page is telling you how to read the book.
Yeah.
Finished page, or this is the finished image. Suggestions, idea, original art.
Nice.
And so from that point forward, as you flip through the book, all of the different pages with their different processes are able to be revealed that way.
Cool.
So you can see that this is pencil, crayon, and acrylic from the examples of the original art. Or I drew this in pencil. I finished it digitally with color.
Right.
And, and it walks through the entire process this way. It shows the different approaches that I take to doing the pages. And, hey,
here's my favorite page.
Who's this gorgeous guy?
That's a great drawing.
Who's this big old pile of beefcake?
Yeah, look at this guy.
Yeah, so this is the collaborative page with Dee Dee and everybody else using one of Dee Dee's lemur stickers. It was so cool.
That's great.
And the stamp swap that she organized. And so it's just, you see the original art, and so it helps the people to understand that process. The rawness of the original art that we do sometimes can be refined.
Yeah.
And to look a little more present. Like, look at the border edge here. Crazy haphazard business.
Yeah.
But the clean line that you can put in.
Right.
digitally once you're assembling your page,
Right.
changes the game. So, like this page, it's drawn in a portrait format because here's these two images right there, right? There's the one image there and this image. I'm sorry, it's this image and this image on top of this one in the original art.
Right.
So I reoriented the page for the finished result. So I drew it in portrait and finished it in landscape. So that's how I got around that. That's how I defied that.
Gotcha.
Instead, I did all the pages uniformly, but it was in a sideways format.
That's awesome. Okay, so we've talked about your process.
Yeah.
And by the way, the Artcasters the other night was really fun episode, and you guys talked a lot about the process of like the different art supplies that you use. It was just great fun to hear you guys talk about just the process you use in making your art and just all the you're speaking to 3 artists, so they're getting their take and sort of just the interact
well, you could
everybody's
about
point on your art process is great conversation.
Oh, that's nice of you, Paul. Thanks.
Yeah, my evil alarm.
What did Chris say about my only published material?
Oh yeah,
sorry. It's registered in Mexico with ISBN, only printed on demand. It's called Gatos y Flores, Cats and Flowers. I'm going to write this down.
Gatos y Flores. That's my best Spanish, Chris. Sorry.
Gato and French is cake. So we might not be saying that right. Cats and Flowers.
Didi was published way back in 87, 88 with cross stitch books. I said that wrong. Like, well, I'm.
Didi.
I guess we're all old here, so.
I like that. Look at that. Look at cross stitch. I've never seen that many S's together.
Oh yeah,
that's the cool thing about words is that you'll see a word that you don't normally see, and you're like, look at all the S's. That's so cool. Anyways, I'm simple. I'm a simple man. Gato is something else in Italian. Uh-oh. Uh-oh.
That's great. All right, so we talked about your art process. We talked about producing the book. It's on Amazon. That's where mine's going to. There's other ways you can go about it. You can work with these companies. There's 100 different ways you can do it. Pluses and minuses. There's no right way to do it. So
I find that a lot of these companies that are soliciting, hey, we'll put your book together for you.
Yeah.
Belabor the process. The one that I came across belabored the process so badly, and they would, this has to be adjusted here. Okay, then adjust the entire book, right? I have to adjust it. Their art person doesn't adjust it. I have to do it. If I want the art person to adjust it, they expect more money.
Yeah.
And then okay, well, we found all these typos. You couldn't told me about whatever these grammatical typos are before I reoriented every page. Now I got to go back
and do the
typos, insert them into those pages and reorient them again. And then they go, also, we need about 1/8 of the inch on the side of all the pages. And I'm like, what did you just ask me to do 2 weeks ago? Right.
Brutal.
And then I look at the typos and they're like just random commas. And I'm I'm not changing 8 pages for that.
Yeah.
So, and then the third time they're like, so we're going to need to add about a 3/4 of an inch at the top. And I'm like, and at this point, I'm not communicating with them because they called me when I had low blood sugar and I went, I don't understand what your process is, and I don't get upset with people. I tend to be really understanding, but because they're just asking me to reformat an entire book again, and I got low blood sugar and I can't entirely control my emotions then. So I said, you communicate with Lori from now on, because otherwise I don't think we can do this. And so when Lori says, they need you to do this much on every page, and I went, okay. And I reached out to you, and you and Jim and I got on that three-way conversation, and my book was done 2 weeks after that.
Yeah. There you go.
I drove through this. I looked at this. I formatted the entire book. I changed the way the pages were all structured so that I could do this, which they told me I couldn't.
Right. Yep.
And it was done in 2 weeks, and off the proof went.
Yep. There you go. So Chris, Dee Dee, if you want to compile just a tiny portion of your artwork into a book, anybody here. I know Jim is considering doing a great. He's got a great book idea based on his movie.
Oh yeah, good fun.
And it can be done. So, but it can be very intimidating. But we've got people here that have learned the hard way. So there you go. And Christopher's story about just giving up and going. There's stories about determination and perseverance. And I respect that. I think they're fascinating. But I also think there's something to be said for like laziness and just like taking the easy road, the road most traveled. There's this book, The Road Less Traveled. I never read that book. I take the road most traveled. When you run into an obstacle, go the other way.
What? This road leads to San Diego? Guess we're living in San Diego.
That's right.
But here's the big problem with that process is Lori and I started a comic company in 2015. What it was is that when we were moving, I had a studio downtown. The side where her office was my studio.
Mm-hmm.
And then I had the space at home.
Mm-hmm.
And so when we brought our houses together, we collapsed my downtown studio. And thanks so much, Dee Dee. It's very nice of you. And I'm looking forward to Paul's book too. So when we collapsed my studio from downtown and set up a studio space in the house, I finished the entire lower floor of a house. That's where my studio is now.
Mm-hmm.
And so I did the wiring, the plumbing, and the walls and all that,
Yeah.
So when we put those together, Lori was helping me put everything together in the studio, and she found 3 finished books in a drawer. And she said, "What is this?" And I said, "Oh, those are projects I worked on." She goes, "Have you done anything with these?" And I went, "Well, I gave the one to the one client, and no to the other." She goes, we should do something with these. This is how big is this? And it's a 42-page story. She goes, "Christopher," So we started our Runciman Press by putting those out, and then after I put out 3 releases of stuff that I'd done, I've been talking to enough people to say, hey, if you've got some short story piece that you've done, let's put together an anthology and get all these other voices out so that you can use this to say to the small publishers that you go to see in Toronto and whatnot and say, look, I've been published, publish me.
Right. Yeah, that's great. That's a great.
So, and I call them apartments anthologies because whenever I look at an apartment building, I don't see apartments, I see stories.
Yeah,
not
that's
just
great.
Stories.
Yeah.
But every apartment has a different story.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
That's what I love about these. That's what I love about these. Doing these.
Oh yeah.
I imagine, who lives in these. Like,
all the different things going on.
Windows, behind these. But anyway.
So we ended up doing 16 apartments. And I started doing a monthly comic jam at an art gallery downtown where I would walk people through the process of writing and drawing stories. And then we put out 7 of those and a bunch of solo books and another quarterly publication that had ongoing stories that we did 4 issues of that. And then I put out on my own 28 books.
28.
28 books. And then there was, in the quarterly book, I had enough material for 2 more, or for 1 more.
Okay.
And so the 1-page story that I did in a portrait in a floppy format, that was my 30th book.
Okay.
And then, but none of it was online. It was all regionally published and promoted around here.
like
So
where
we
can I
ended
get
up.
all this? And yeah,
So for the course of action, we ended up publishing about 250 to 300 people.
wow,
Someplace in there, 275. Let's just say 275. What am I doing?
yeah,
But
that's amazing.
because of the anthologies and the
Yeah, yeah,
comic jams of like 8 people on a page,
right. That's
So
wonderful.
it's all well and great, but I sort of reached the extent of that. I had 2 directions I could go. I mean, I could go and continue on this course of only doing things on a regional basis, or I could try to go online, enjoy and join the modern world of the interwebs.
Right. So one of the things on my list here was the business of comics. So you've spoken about it a little bit, and you're sort of branching out new here into a new territory here. For you, and you know a lot more about the business of comics than I do, because you worked in a comic book. You had a comic book store or bookstore, right?
Yeah, I worked in a comic book store for 21 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
And comics is I always, especially nowadays, there's very few people that like you're not going to have a Stan Lee or this bullpen of people in New York City drawing Spider-Man.
No, that's good.
You're gonna Jim finally, because I love the smell of paper too. New book smell. I wonder if he's like watching this not live, because we were talking about this. That's funny. Jim, catch up, man. We're live.
He's fast forwarding and making comments every few seconds.
Yeah. Anyway, he's got his Jim bot going. But I mean, I love making comics, and I feel fortunate that I can, and I see like these folks struggling to make money at it, and complaining online about, comics business is going to hell, or and I get it. Like it's unfortunate, but man, 20 years.
That argument has been there from the start.
Yeah, I know. And 20 years ago,
no, 80 years ago.
No, but I'm saying for me personally, like 20 years ago, I couldn't make comics without the resources that I have now, the computers, online stuff.
Sure.
I've got the opportunity now. And to me, comics is richer than it has ever been. Now, if you're pining for the days of Spider-Man and Superman, the golden age of comics, or the early 90s when Image was, taking over the world, yeah, it's not the same. But now you've got, these stories from people like yours it's just, it's not even just your story. It's like a collaboration of this whole process that you couldn't imagine 20, 30 years ago, let alone 50. My story is me, in my head, totally in my head, just spending way too much time inside my head, and it comes out, in this story. But you've got
really well.
But you got these, just all these. It's so rich. I mean, you can go online, you can go to Kickstarter and back it.
Sure.
I can scroll through and find out, tons of comics that I'm interested in. I'm compiling a collection of these stupid books. I mean, I can't keep buying all the books I want to buy, and so, but you can't. It's really difficult to make money at it.
Yeah.
I mean, I've from what I can see. I mean, there are people making money, and there's some people that are making a living at it, but I think it's pretty rare.
Well, with the whole process of putting all all the independent published books together with RP, like eventually we stopped calling it Runciman Press and started calling it RP Comics, because it was about more than just me.
Yeah.
And Tristan Damone, my good friend that I've mentioned, she did all the formatting for the books, and for all the anthologies, I had her do all the covers. The process of all that's what caused me so much challenge with working with this online publisher.
Yeah.
Is that I know what I'm doing. Like, that's the whole
Right.
thing here, is that I know you're milking, you're grafting me here. Like, it's just tell me what the page measurements are and you'll
Right.
get them.
Yeah.
No, it's all about this nonsensical process, which is why I dropped them
Mm-hmm.
and used it as some of the ideas and some of the promotional ideas that they had. We just use those as consultancy and forgot and just let it go. And they kept sending me texts and texts and texts. The book had been out for a week and a half, and they text me again saying, "You're getting close to the end of your contract term with us." And I just deleted it, like I delete everything else. I don't even read the text of the emails. I'm like, "You're done. You're still going." But with all of that in mind, in working at the shop and doing the books ourselves, and with myself and Tristan and Lori, we get it. And
Right.
how all the processes of what goes into making the products and trying to do something with them. And we only, again, distributed them regionally and gave them to creators and blah 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 blah. But when it came to the store, because I read whatever I can get my hands on, really.
Mm-hmm.
And I got a mind like a steel trap for a lot of these stories. It sort of gives you insight into the history of all this. But people haven't been happy in comics since 1938.
Right.
Creation of Superman.
Yeah. Yeah.
They
No,
came
I know.
they came out as kids' books, and when the
Right.
war started, they stopped allowing the production of pulp papers for unnecessary periodicals, and they stopped producing those in the States. And so there's a little hiatus for a few years of comics that they'd only make so many and not distribute them outside of Canada. So Canada had a comic period in between that called the Canadian Whites, and it's where we were producing our own comics of Nanook of the North and fun and silly Canadian comic books, and reprinting some American stories. And that lasted until the end of the war, and then the Americans kicked back up again. But
Wow.
People we don't, and they're called the Canadian Whites because they were printed on a better quality paper that was more white than the American ones were.
Right.
So they history of comics ever since then has been going through these little ebbs and flows, and the Wortham trials, where they were trying to say comic books are destructive to children and communist.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
And taking down EC Comics because it's everything wrong about publishing. And
By the way, I have a crazy story for you. There's this great YouTuber. I don't know his real name, but he goes by Imperium Vol.
Okay.
And he makes comics.
Great.
He does a great job. I love watching his stream. Imperium Vol.
Oh, I know that person.
Yeah, he's been on yours before. He does great work too.
Huh.
He just recently it looks great. He's found a way to make his comics, to print them on newsprint.
Oh yeah.
And make them look like the old comics. The art. And
I can show you the filters on Photoshop to do that yourself if you want.
Yeah, but I guess he got a special kind of printer. You had to get a special kind of printer to print.
Yeah, you can. There's programs in Photoshop where you can convert your artwork to look like artwork from the 1950s with the day glow dots.
Yes, that's what he did. Yeah, but then he also prints it on newsprint. Yeah,
very inexpensive.
He prints it at he doesn't send it off to Amazon or Comics Wellspring. By the way, is another great company to work with.
Yeah.
For printing comics, but it's really cool. So it's just
a fantastic way that he goes about producing the stuff in.
Yeah, it's just funny to me that he's trying to go backwards, in the process. But anyway,
that's awesome. I'm gonna have to look into Vol's, I'm gonna have to look into try to get some of Vol's books, because that sounds awesome.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if he's got any. I think he just figured that part out, and so.
Okay, well then I'll keep an eye on how he's going.
Yeah, but Jim asked this, when will you get your sketchbooks? Those are also amazing.
Oh, that's very nice of Jim. I was also trying to sneak away from that question.
I wasn't going to let it go.
They're sketchbooks. I don't know. I have literally never thought about it until you guys brought that up.
Really?
Yeah, never thought about it. The whole thing happened in the 70s and 80s, is 60s, 70s, and 80s is where you saw a lot of the underground because of the proliferation of printing availability. In the 1960s, you saw a lot of independent underground, comics coming out, like Robert Crumb and Spain and all these other different guys. And the 70s, 80s is where you saw a lot of independent publishers again appearing and distribution nodes starting to gather for independent books. And then in the 90s, somebody got wise, and it was a major network and Time released stories about the collectability and the money that you can make in comics and hockey cards. That they're an item that maintains its value and in fact increases in value for collectability for old books.
Yeah.
And suddenly the market went insane and massive. And within a year, you had 20 different card companies and innumerable independent publishers. By 98, you had 4 card companies.
Yeah.
And
it all collapsed.
Massive collapse of all of these guys, all these number ones that people would buy thinking they're going to put their kids through college or in dollar bins right now. It's sad. It's a really sad thing. Yeah, it's a really sad thing because of the speculation boom that hit. All these variant covers. One book, Gen 13, number 2, had 13 separate covers for a second issue. And it's like, those are worthless now. They're worthless. People bought them in the droves. Yeah. And it's sad. It's a sad thing that the market took such advantage of it. And at the same time, in a capitalist culture, yay! Yeah. But at the same time, not very nice to the readers because it's the same interiors. It's just a different picture on the front. Just put them in the back of the book for people.
Yeah.
But they want more sales. They want more units to make more money.
By the way, I've always thought the cover art is fantastic and everything. But to me, the true artistry is in the story. How the story, the art, the fantastic art, sequential art tells that story, so I've never been a cover person. Like, covers are there to
you're also a creator, right? It's about storytelling. That's what this whole industry is about, is storytelling. It's not about flashbang big images on every page and very little meat to it. One drawing of somebody flying through the air and being shot at by 8 bad guys and 19 word panels on it is not storytelling.
Good morning, Terry. Apparently, Terry.
Good morning, Terry. How you doing? Oh, Terry agrees. Look out. So it's a challenge. So I don't like the 90s period of comics. I don't. And I think that there's a lot of really bad comics that came out with bad storytelling that were really overblown or really hyped up because of a speculation boom, and people thought that meant quality. And the truth of it is it didn't. But there's a lot of hype for that because of the reminiscence factor. All those kids that grew up in the 80s and early 90s think those things are the greatest.
Right.
And then shows like Comic Kayfabe, where they talk about, here's 90s comics, check it out, Rob Liefeld. Rob Liefeld's work was garbage. It was just absolutely terrible. And he knows it. He has said it.
I think part of his, I think in the part of the appeal for Rob Liefeld is the
extreme.
Yeah, the extreme.
Which is why he called his comic company Extreme Studios. but the whole thing about that is that childhood reminiscence that all those people have that are adults in their 30s, 40s now.
Yeah.
That's fine. That's great that you loved He-Man cartoons and G.I. Joe and Transformers and those things. But it's not, if you look at examples from the 60s and 70s, and you can see the real solid storytelling techniques that are in those that were just, a lot of them were just discarded in the 1990s. It's a sad, it's a sad thing, and it's come back now. There's some absolutely brilliant storytellers right now.
Well, yeah. Now, the great, to me, the great thing is, the great thing is any yahoo off the street like myself can make a comic. The bad thing about that is any yahoo off the street can make a comic.
I'm never going to dismiss the opportunity for anybody to tell a story, for
Yeah,
anybody to make a comic. I'm never going to dismiss the opportunity for anybody to explore their own creativity.
Yeah.
I just don't like hype. And
Right.
when it's hype that's unwarranted and it's based on speculation or the capital system, it's sort of takes the wind out of people that might have a really creative endeavor that don't feel that it's working out for them because the guy next to them is dressed in some garish comic at a Comic-Con and saying, check out my work, and getting all this attention. And it's this person has invested this time and energy and creativity in it, but they might not be an extrovert on any level at all.
Yeah.
And that's being overlooked for the guy playing a ghetto blaster at volume. And this, I've actually seen this at a con. Ghetto blaster at volume, dressed as a dynamite disco guy from the 70s, and he's got a photocopy pile of garbage. And that guy's moving on. So, it's a challenge, right?
Yeah.
And now we've got AI coming in, and now there's all these people that are typing a couple of words into an algorithm.
Yeah.
It produces really weird results. And they go, check it out, I did a book. And meanwhile, here's this other person that sweat time and effort and growth over years. That AI person's reaping all this rewards without.
I got that. So that's the last thing I want to talk to you. So you talked about business comics. Another thing on my list is I just wrote down life/art balance.
Yep.
Because I don't really have a question for you, but I just wanted to talk to you about the fact that you are an artist, and like I'm an artist, like most people in our chat that are watching are artists at some level. Some people are artists, like they make a living at this. Some of us we only do it when we get older and retire. Or
I don't think that making a living with your art makes you any more legitimate than somebody that cracks open a block of paper or a random sheet on their dining room kitchen table once in a fortnight and enjoys the practice of working on whatever they're working. That person is just as legitimate as the big avant-garde Banksy. Okay, Banksy spray painting on walls and having ridiculous morons spend $250,000 for a piece of concrete. That's all hype. It's all just hype. I know you like Banksy. Congratulations, I like him too. But that's hype. That's the art world being a bunch of raging lunatics that see everything as dollar signs, as opposed to what the process of it in and of itself. And don't even, if I get started on Banksy, I'm gonna rail. But
no, what I wanted to talk to you about was, like how does it fit in? Like you had mentioned it. I don't know if we were online yet or not. Because Greg, the funny thing to me is if you and I are talking offline, our conversation will go completely different. I'm talking about some of the old days and things, but we were talking about family first, what your priorities are.
Yeah.
But to be able to do this amount of work that goes into creating 358 pages of comics in a year, or your pages are jam packed. They're not like 3 panels or whatever. They're I think I asked you to calculate the average, and you said it might have been like 7 panels a page or something.
Yeah.
This was a while back, but so this is a significant part of your life. Like how much of it how much of your identity is not. That's a stupid question, but
Well, it's not. It's not.
how much this is a big part of your life, I guess. I just wanted you.
It's not a dumb question. Before I answer that, Anina says that she's got a Banksy shirt and still has to do a jigsaw of one of his stuff. Your appreciation of art is real. You like the things that you see, and you have an aesthetic appreciation of the things that you have come across, and you want to engage those in your world. That's real artistic appreciation, right? But Banksy getting all the hype and all the mystery is because Banksy is interlaced in the upper crust of the American and British fine art communities. He's the manufactured thing. He's not doing anything different than tons of other stencil graphic artists that are just as fantastic. And there's a French guy that did it 20 years before him that just changed the game. So I'm not just dismissing the process and the creativity of itself, but I don't like the hype is all. But yeah, there's nothing wrong with legitimately loving an artist. When that artist subsumes every other artist that's doing the same thing around them, because they're special it's the same,
Yeah.
The only cool thing that Banksy's ever really done that made me go, Banksy's got something, is that he did a piece on paper, had it in a frame, it sold at an auction for $2 million, and immediately somebody in that auction house pressed a button on a little remote, and the paper dropped into the shredder that was built into the frame and shredded half of that drawing. So that person that spent that egregious amount of money for hype has now got to keep that piece with the shredded bits dangling from the bottom intact for it to have any of that value left. Beautiful. So he even knows what's going on around him.
I don't know if Terry's now. She's like, Paul put it up. The old grandpa's. Well, Terry, we enjoy it.
Terry, I am a grandpa.
Yeah.
I have 6 grandkids, and so for me, it was the work balance thing is really important. There is such a thing as everybody has creativity and artistic expression within them, and they want to get stuff out. It's a form of communication. We all have it. The difference is the extent to which we develop it. 1, and 2, the allowance of us to maintain that childlike imagination. And we live in a world that just doesn't want that. It's too important. You press the button on the conveyor belt and produce the machine in the factory. It's too important for that.
Speaking of the windows I saw this meme or something. I think it was this morning regarding. It was a picture of like downtown Toronto, and it said, there was a little video of zooming into one of these big giant skyscrapers. Some lady had her back to the window. She was at her computer, and she's typing, but it was during the eclipse, and it said, eclipses come and go, but shareholders are forever.
Wow. Yeah, that's apropos. But I love it. I love what Anina says there. That's great. Street art in Paris. That's exactly what I'm talking.
Sure, only got because didn't know what else to take home in London. I prefer street art in Paris.
The street art in Paris and some of the absolutely phenomenal artists that are there that aren't getting the recognition they deserve all predate Banksy by decades.
So this is actually the last thing on my list that I wanted to talk to you about.
Hold on, let me finish the work-life balance.
Yeah.
So when the kids are growing up, you do not get to sit there for X amount of time because art to be able to be successful as an artist is a very greedy thing. And what I mean by that isn't to diminish artists. It's to say that it's a greedy consumption of your time. It's a necessity that you spend X amount of time and X amount of economics and X amount of space in order to pursue what you need to do to build up that self as a creator.
Right.
And
Yeah.
it's a very greedy, consumptive thing. And then you have all the time you got to spend marketing it and promoting self and attending galleries and putting work in galleries and so on and so on and so on.
Mm-hmm.
That family is second. It's just what it is. If those people that you see, the big successful artists, they either don't have families or those families recognize what it takes for the artist to be whatever they are. And economics is a big one. It just is. We've always lived in a world where, in order to be an artist, you have to have accommodation. And it's only in the last so many years, with the creation of more readily accessible watercolors, the creation of acrylic paints, so that more people can afford to even paint, and the synthetic, with using the synthetic ones. And then there's all these people that say, I still prefer the oils, because I'm glad you do. But the acrylic paint makes it's a democratizing of the fact that anybody has the facility to be able to acquire these materials on an easier basis. I'm not saying they're not cheap or anything, but so the work-life balance thing, you have got to think about what the priority is. Is it to be the big successful name? Is it to be the Andy Warhol, the Basquiat, the I can't think of names, but is it to be, the Caravaggio, the Leonardo? Is it, or is it to engage in a family, and then to actually engage in a family, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, is that's why Laurie's handle is married to an artist? Yeah. So, but then there's the crazy ones, and the crazy ones, like me, are it's so integral to who we are that even while we have a family and so on and so forth, we carry sketchbooks around. And when we're not, even while we're watching television or somebody with our kids and that, we'll be doodling as we're doing it, just because it's part of we have to get it out. It has to get out.
Mm-hmm.
In order to keep us level like everybody else. It's just something that is integral to a creative individual. It doesn't mean you're not engaging in the world, and it doesn't mean you're not kicking the soccer ball around. It doesn't mean all those things. You give up your time, and as others would not be able to do so in the art world. But there's a quality of creatives, and it was Laurie that helped me understand this. That there are some creative people that we can't shut it off. We just can't turn off the tap. So
right.
It's a very consumptive thing to be successful as an artist. And we have 5 kids, and none of them are artists. They're just not, because they see, that they enjoy electrical engineering. They see that they enjoy working in the community with people. They see that they enjoy, for my one son, he runs all the tabletop gaming stuff at the store I used to work at. He enjoys that. They have my oldest, she's married and kids, and she prefers to really engage with her family. Like they're their own people, is my point. And born and created an artist family. I don't have an artist family. There's nobody else in my family that does what I do or continues, except for one of my grandkids. My eldest granddaughter likes to be in my studio. But there are great artist families out there, and they produce artists. I think that there's a quality to the process of what they do that changes over time. Like you'll always have the outlier, and sometimes 2 generations removed from that outlier who's doing something interesting is a lot of artist families. You'll notice there's one person who goes, well, I'm an artist. Cool. What are you working? Well, I'm considering on doing a series of drawings. Are you doing any drawings? I've considered it. Yeah. There's always those weird ones that, not Miriam. I mean, Miriam's crazy talented with all kinds of things going on. But, Terry says my family's full of artists. So it's either one or the other.
Mine too. Yeah, mine. We're
So,
tons of artists.
But when you have a family with artists, it becomes integral and everybody does it. And then when you have somebody who's a weirdo like me,
broke the mold, as they say.
well, it's not so much that I broke the mold, as that I was the oddball. I'm the oddball, right? And there's nothing wrong with that. But work-life balance is a challenging thing. We have to make choices. And either artist families, where art is an integral part of everything, but artist families tend to not have, the Basquiat or the Andy Warhol in there. And if they do, it's not dad or mom. It's the brother or sister that is off being successful without the family. Those crazy successful people don't have family. They don't have kids.
Yeah,
they just don't.
Yeah.
And if they do, it's because it's what's that?
You got to sacrifice some things to gain.
It's terrible. It's terrible that, but at the same time, that's the art world. Is that it's very much about, if we want everything about you, you are our product, and that's not fair.
Yeah. Yeah.
It doesn't mean that there's not a modicum of success for people in artist families like that, but they're never going to be Andy Warhol.
Mm-hmm.
They're just not.
Yeah.
Look at the great creators in history and tell me how many of them have big families. And the ones that do, how great was that life for those great families? You'll hear stories about Modigliani's family being bankrupt and having to put everything on the wife's pregnancy bed so that they don't lose it. Right?
Nina says, my mom dragged me in art museum all around the world. Also one in Vancouver. Back then, didn't appreciate. Now I do. I go myself and drag my friends along. Nice.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Look at this giant sculpture, honey. Oh, I want to go to that.
Say,
so,
yeah.
So it wasn't until my kids were growing up that that I started doing stuff more. That's why 2015. Mm-hmm. And I'd shown in galleries numerous times for the occasional pieces, and I'd work on a number of publications for other people. Like the first sequential book I had published was in 2001, but 2015 is when our kids were at a certain age, and Lori and I could say, well, let's put something into that. I was still working full time, and it wasn't until 2021 when my pancreas shut off and I became type 1 diabetic, that the kids were grown up and the house is ours. Why am I working as hard as I am outside in the world when, maybe I can invest a little time into this? So that's why the one-page thing is in the afternoon, because in mornings I'm trying to do other things,
right? Other
projects. And so the pages I'm producing for the one page is not all I do. Yeah, see, there you go.
An art gallery for 1 year. Kind of not a fan of that scene. I love creative people, though. Just not the art gallery scene.
It's one of the most corrupt communities on planet Earth. People just don't. Excellent. I knew it, Jim. I knew it. It's terrible what the art world is. Well, there's two things. One, it can only highlight so many people.
Yeah. Well, hey, listen, I got one more thing on my list that I wanted to talk to you about. Now, this is what I wrote down. I wrote down traditional digital AI because I know what I wanted to talk to you about.
Hit me.
But this, this conversation about AI and all that stuff I'm not interested in having that conversation because it's all over the place. It's kind of boring to me at this point. But your conversation on Artcasters the other day was fantastic. When you guys were talking about the process, because you're a big fan of just taking a crayon, or whatever you have. You don't have to have the best art tools. That's your. What does Chris say? Oh, I'm sorry, I have to leave, but I have to go shopping for the heat of hell right here, 30 centigrade Fahrenheit. Bye, Chris. Have a great day. Thanks for coming.
I wear just a sweater in the snow. I could not handle that heat.
Maybe you Find Dee Dee in the grocery store.
I think they might be at different grocery stores, Marion.
I got to go to the grocery store later. Saturday afternoon at the grocery stores.
Well, at least you're in the same country as Dee Dee is.
Yeah.
Grocery store. Yeah.
Yeah, we may not have the heat up here, but it is hell. Grocery store. So anyway, I wanted to talk to you about. So, you were talking about, the benefits, or what you liked about just using traditional art supplies, and not even good art supplies. A paper bag. You were talking about painting on a paper bag earlier, and but then you do some things digital. I strictly use digital, but I agree with everything you were saying. And then there's this whole AI. I don't know if that's necessarily a straight line from traditional to digital to AI, but part of it is, like, I'm taking shortcuts, using these electronic tools that I have, my iPad and blah, blah, blah. Interestingly, when you publish in the Amazon book, it asks you if you use any AI.
Yeah.
You have to answer that question.
You're probably answering that question to an AI.
Right. It's a weird world we live in. But I loved that conversation that you were having with those guys, because and this is where I'm going with this, Christopher, is that you, like I said, I'm not interested in this conversation about traditional, digital, AI. What I'm interested in is exactly what you do as an artist. And artists, what they can tell you, and I agree with this, is AI cannot be an artist. You are an artist, and you are what I'm interested in, is what people are interested in. So, you were talking about, oh yeah, there's an AI movie, So are you telling me an AI wrote the script?
Yeah.
An AI did all the acting, and AI did all and made the visuals. I got to be honest. I bet you that nobody's interested. I'm not gonna say nobody, and I probably may have watched it, not even known, but people are interested in the artists, and people.
They are, but you're an artist.
Connect to. So,
but you're an artist, Paul.
Yeah, this is true.
Writer. You are a writer, and you illustrate.
But I think even people that are just don't even call themselves an artist, or barely an artist, are interested in artists. I mean, I'm interested in very accomplished artists.
Sure, but here's the way I look at it. I used to be a manager of a photo studio. All right, the production manager of a photo studio, not the overall manager, just overseeing the productive way. And so that's 5 wedding photographers and 13 real estate photographers. And we set up the real estate photographed real estate listings for the entire area that I live in. Now, it used to be traditional cameras were incredibly expensive. You hear about all these people that I used to shoot in 16 millimeter back in the day. It's because you had money. Right? You had money, because the process of
you got the hype. You had the hype.
Well, it's not hype. It's you had money. Steven Spielberg's who Steven Spielberg is because his family had money in order to accommodate just the processing of film alone. Right? Now, as a production manager in a photo studio, traditional film is expensive. Traditional processing of film was expensive. All of the chemicals and the processes and the space to do it is expensive. So it's an economically unviable thing for everybody to be able to do it. When digital cameras came along, they changed the game. And a lot of this, it has to be traditional, became less important because a lot more people could afford to buy a digital camera, click, image. And as soon as they put view screens on the digital cameras, that changed the game again. And then when you print them out, change the game again. But then that got outmoded almost immediately, within a few years, because they put cameras on phones.
Yeah, that was a game
And
changer.
now it's completely democratized. Now everybody that can get themselves a phone has themselves a camera. And as soon as that happens, the photo studio industry took a massive beating. And a lot of those places closed because it wasn't such a necessity. For those that could afford all those photos, those people, the cost of it would be to get family photos, could probably afford a digital camera. And now, does that mean that everybody has the affinity for taking decent photos? No. But everybody has a chance to try. Hi, Mariah.
Yeah, hi. Howdy.
So that democratization of the film industry, right? The photo industry had massive impacts, not once, not twice, but numerous times before everybody's phone had a camera in it. And now you can still use those places. There are a number of them that still exist, but they're a specific thing. It's like the kids with the record players now.
Right. Yeah.
Right? It's records you used to be able to find. You could get a half a dozen records out of a bin for $1 Canadian, which is like a nickel American, right?
Yeah. What do you buy
now
for? How much do they go for if you want to buy, like an
classic records are a couple bucks, $5. It's only $10. Are you kidding me? This thing wasn't $10 when it came out. I remember buying Janis Joplin Pearl when I was a kid. The first two records I bought were Janis Joplin Pearl and Gord's Gold, Gordon Lightfoot's greatest hits. Were my two first records, and then Blood, Sweat, and Tears. Anyways, but that was a long time ago. And those things cost $6 or $7. And the reason I remember that is that was a lot of money.
Yeah. Did they have like and they had the album cover with and you open it and it had I remember my older brothers had a Doobie Brothers album, and I was, a real little kid, and I would sneak down there, and if you opened it up, it had a naked lady and there was a girl with, no top on. I'd sneak down to my brother's room and check out his Doobie Brothers album.
Led Zeppelin 4, where you could fold it open and it was the guy with the lantern.
Oh, yeah.
The one big picture, right? Or Aqualung, where it was, you open it up and there's all this stuff inside, and then you pull out the thing and there's all the lyrics. But now, so everything old is new again. But it has an awful lot to do with accommodation.
You got a strobe light going in here?
Yeah, I was shaking a lamp. I do that because I'm having a bit of a tremor day. So all of those things, as they change the marketplace over time, we adapt, and more people have accessibility to it. Therefore, more people can find it as a means of creativity. That is the danger of AI. It's not anything else. It's not replacing people for whatever. It's the democratization of a marketplace. So the only people that could afford to make art for X amount of time throughout history are those that could accommodate the time and the economics for the materials to make art. And as that has become more available to others with synthetic paints like acrylics and more and more, inexpensive materials that are accessible to others, and more time that we have societally lets everybody do it. And AI, it just makes a fancy looking thing with not a lot of effort. That's all it is. It's just another tool. But if you spend the time doing your own thing and exploring your own avenue with your own voice, it doesn't matter.
Right. And that's what you do. I mean, that's why I like the term that you use, engagement, because you've got like this multi-faceted, you got your stream, you're doing your artwork, and then you do it behind the scenes, and now you're coming out with a book. And I mean, this whole experience, it's the Runciman experience.
But Paul, you do the same thing. Mariah does the same thing. Miriam does.
Right. No, I know.
Jim does the same. I'm not going to point out everybody, but it's not that it's a unique thing. It's just that what we're doing is even though we're engaging with others with story ideas and sharing notions and words and prompts and interacting with one another as creatives. We're all, autonomously working on whatever our own form of expression is and pursuing that and allowing ourselves to develop this externalized form of communication with others through our expression. And so I think that as a creative, when you look at traditional work, when you look at digital work, these are just tools. Whether you're spending $1 million on a tool or you're accommodating what you can with those tools. Again, I'm shaking my camera, I'm sorry. Or you can accommodate whatever tools that you can for your own level of economics. John Lennon said, I'm a musician. You give me a tuba, I'll get you something out of it. Right? Yep. It's just pursuing that avenue.
Yeah.
And developing it over time. And it's not about drawing all day, every day. It's about developing your drawing when you have time to do it. So it's, if you just draw the same duck over and over and over again for 20 years, you're drawing a duck. But if you look at the aspect of duck and you try to figure out feathers and you try to figure out the beak and you try to figure out how light works on a subject and you try to figure out dimension and you think about all these other extraneous, elements that come into it, then your duck is going to look substantially different over 20 years.
Right.
And, so as far as it goes for the craft, I'm a firm proponent of, it's not a case of he who has the most toys wins. It's a case of the things that you find, give them a go. Give them a go. Allow yourself the avenue to explore. If you have the ability to work digitally and you don't need to dump all of your traditional materials, figure out what you can do to enhance your traditional skills and work with digital means. Why not? Or stick with your traditional. There's no rules. There's no specific thing. And I think that with the AI kicking in and the panic it's causing a lot of people, it's because they're very much focused in on this is the only way to do it.
Yeah.
And AI can do that. Therefore, what am I?
Hey, look what Mariah says here. One of the things I love about PM is I get to use all my skills to create all the content and tools for us and others.
That's excellent.
Yeah, I love that too.
I think one of the wonderful things about P&M Artist Studio is the fact that they're not just, hey, watch me dance. They're not that at all. They're, hey, here's some stencils that somebody has designed within our community. We're going to try to explore some different ways we can utilize these. You can get a hold of these stencils if you want to try them yourself.
Yeah.
That's real.
Yeah, I love it. I just love it. You have the whole interactiveness of this community, and your book is really a culmination of all of that. So I think we'll end on that. Yeah. Congratulations on the new book. And
thanks, buddy.
Yeah, I hope it. I don't know. I was going to say I hope it sells, but I know you don't care. But I hope it does, just because I
love that people are engaging. I love that people are picking them up. I really do. I think that's very encouraging, and I hope that when people look at it, somebody's already said to me that they bought a copy specifically to use as a scrapbook.
Oh wow!
They bought a copy specifically so that they can do collages with it. That's wonderful. I think that's great. Like other people would be like, "You're going to rip my book up," I appreciate everybody doing it, but like you say, the measure of your integrity, the measure of your ability as a creative is it doesn't come from the money. It doesn't come from the big, being Andy Warhol. It doesn't come from that. It comes from the communication, the engagement with others. I think that, if you're able to do that, enjoy that. That's fun. That doesn't mean I'm the best now. Look at me, my hairline came back in. Woo! It's just that you're able to engage and communicate with others in that way. So, yeah, I appreciate everybody picking them up, and I appreciate those that are leaving reviews on the Amazon page, because That's the only reason Amazon ever looks at you, apparently.
Oh,
to,
okay.
to
Okay.
put it in front of other faces. And as creatives, let's not be naive. We create because it's a form of communication and we want other faces to look at it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, I
But
think that's what this is all about. So
what I really get a buzz out of are the suggestions.
yeah.
The
Oh
prompts.
my gosh.
I do. And the reason that I do get a buzz out of that is because maybe the person who left the suggestion hasn't considered themselves able to express themselves in some certain way. And so being able to say 3 words, here, do, Tyrannosaurus, puppy, and blender. It's 3 terrible words together, by the way.
Well, that's why I never make any suggestions, because I've got my own book. I mean, so I love being able. In fact, that's why I never do any voices for Jim Lujan, because and I know that I could do all the voices for Jim Lujan's movie, but I've got enough going on over here that I don't need to be in all of it.
Well, let's do a tryout for Jim Lujan right now before we go. Here's my Morgan Freeman. Are you ready? Hey, look at me, I'm Morgan Freeman.
Because you cut out. Did you just do a Morgan Freeman? Because you cut out.
Yeah, hold on, I'll do it again. Hey, I'm Morgan Freeman.
Oh man, that's so good. That's so good. Here's my let's see, here's my Dolly Parton. Hey, I'm Dolly Parton.
Hold on, I'll be Kenny Rogers. Islands in the stream.
That is
what we are.
All right, last question. Where do all of your ideas come from? Shut up, Jim.
I have a bucket in the corner of the room, Jim. Called the idea bucket. It's suspended.
Hey, I'm glad Mariah stopped. I'm glad you stopped by, Mariah. It was good having you. And yes, we are all going to have cigars one day. And and it's not just the boys, Miriam. You're welcome too.
Well, I look forward to our next chance that we get the stream together, so that we can, when your book comes out. I really do. I really enjoy what you do, Paul. Yeah. And if people have had a chance to take a look at your first 2 Detective Perez stories, they are Paul. They're very much from Paul's head.
I got to tell you a quick story about my newest book. I'm quite proud. I asked my wife to check it for typos, and she found one. Hey, there's Corbin.
Say hi.
Hey, big fella. So my wife found one. I spelled roll ROLE when I should have spelled it ROLL. So,
nice.
So she said, "Here's your typo." I had one, so I was quite.
Excellent.
And then there was also the word parlay in there, and she said she had to look it up to make sure I used the correct spelling, because there's different ways to spell that one.
PARLEY.
Yeah, I think that's the one I used. So, and it's funny. I said I think I actually Googled that when I was writing it. So. Then, I was like, "Thank you so much for doing that. I really appreciate it." And she kind of looks at the side of my eye and she's like, "Speaking of the story, I worry about you." And she walked away. So read at your own peril, Lawson.
She married him.
Anyway. Thanks, Christopher, for coming on. And
hey, thanks, brother.
Yeah, well,
that's awesome. I'm gonna be thinking about that all day. Hey, Lori, is there anything wrong with me?
I hope everybody here. Thanks for joining in the chats, everybody.
Yeah, super cool. Thanks very much, everybody, for coming in.
Yeah, it's fun. I hope you all have a great Saturday. And
if anybody has suggestions or ideas and stuff like that they want to share, they can stick them up on. Either YouTube videos or Facebook or Instagram posts or Patreon posts, whatever it is. And, let's give them, let's take a crack at them.
Yeah, it's super fun getting in there. I feel honored to have my big fat mug on page 13, by the way.
Earlier, somebody asked me a question about whether or not the page of Paul and his smoke detecting beeping alarm that had not been fixed at the time.
Yeah, Chris, I think, asked that.
Yeah, it's that's set up for volume 2.
Right on.
And it's only because that was in the last 6 months of last year.
Okay. All
So
right.
that's in volume 2. So,
One day I'm going to get that thing fixed, and you guys are all you're not even going to come to my stream anymore. It's just going to be crickets out.
You and I Christopher's in Team Friday. There you go. You and I are about 4 hours apart.
Yeah.
And I could probably just drive over and fix it for you. But I'm waiting for my new passport in the mail. What's that?
That'd be awesome. Maybe I'll wait on that.
Yeah, but I'm waiting for my new passport in the mail because getting across the American border.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Tough as nails.
You guys are crazy, man. It's actually harder to get back in. No, you went over there. You stay there. That's what they say.
All right.
Thanks very much. Thanks, everyone. We'll see you later.